Hello, students. How are you all? I hope everyone is fine and doing well. Yesterday, we started a chapter in Serengeti and we finished one page, that is page number 34. Today, we are going to do page 35. I followed them in the car until Gopa and Jeshpa settled under a tree. By then, little Elsa had disappeared. Later, Gopa went down to the river and was followed by Jespa moving slowly. 2 hours later, a zebra raced past, followed by a herd of impala racing as if in flight. On our way to the ravine, the next morning, I noticed a dozen spotted hyenas moving in one direction. Farther away, I saw a dark mass of animals which seemed to be in a heap. Taking my binoculars, I observed 6 wild dogs. When they moved aside for a moment, I was able to see a hyena cub struggling to its feet. But a second later, the dogs were on it again. I positioned the car between them and the cub until it was able to walk slowly over to the hyena pack. Then a second cub advanced towards them. I didn't know in what direction to move the car or how to do it quickly enough to protect both cubs at the same time. But finally, the adult hyenas took over and kept the 2 cubs safely in their midst. Every morning we left early, the sun was still low, and the plains were a sea of sparkling dew from which a mist arose. Wherever we looked, we saw animals sleek or fluffy, striped, spotted, or plain, with horns and bodies or infinite variety. One day we came across a lioness with her cubs walking towards a stagnant pool in the riverbed. The mother walked ahead at each step cautiously, testing the mud with one paw. Lions are always very careful to avoid getting caught in the mud. My nights in the camp were often exciting. I could hear lions moving around on a hunt and recognize the voices of most of them. So she followed the car. She followed the 3 cubs named Gopa, Jespa, and Elsa. And she found Gopa and Jespa was resting under a tree and little Elsa had disappeared. Later, Gopa also went down to the river and Jespa followed him slowly. 2 hours later, they saw a zebra who was running very fast and it was followed by a herd of impala who were racing and as if they are flying. Then on their way to the ravine the next morning, they noticed spotted hyenas moving in one direction. And farther away, she saw a dark mass of animals which seemed to be in a heap. Taking her binoculars, she noticed that 6 wild dogs. There were 6 wild dogs. And when they moved a little bit aside for a moment, she saw a hyena cub was struggling in its feet. So it was trying to run away from the dogs. But a second later, the dogs were on it again. So the dogs were attacking the little baby hyena. Then she positioned her car between the cub and the dogs so that the cub could slowly walk away to the hyena pack. But she didn't know, then she noticed a second cub which was advancing towards the pack. And she doesn't know how to protect both the cubs with the car. She don't know how to move the car quickly. But somehow the adult hyenas came and took the cubs away with them. Then every morning they used to leave in the early when the sun is still low and the whole area was like a sea, of sparkling dews which were rising from the mist. And wherever they looked, they saw only animals which were sleeky or fluffy, striped, spotted or plain, and then with horns or bodies of infinite varieties of animals they used to see. One day she came across a lion with her cubs who was walking around the stagnant pool. Stagnant pool means pool in which water is standing and often has an unpleasant smell. And the mother was walking ahead, and she is keeping her steps very cautiously to test that the mud is not very soft and the cubs can follow her. Lions are always very careful to avoid getting caught in the mud. And at nights, her camp was always surrounded by the sounds of lions, and they're moving and they're hunting animals, and she's very excited to hear all these things, and she could also recognize the voice of some of them. Then page number 36. Once I awoke to hear lapping noises and being half asleep. Listened for some time before I realized that a lioness was inside my tent drinking out of my basin. I had nothing but a table between me and her, so I shouted at her and urged her to go away, which she did. The lions close to Seronera, having been used to visitors since Kabul, were particularly friendly. Many had been surrounded by cars while being suckled by their mothers, and therefore had come to think of human beings and motors as a natural feature in their lives, except in areas where people have hunted or shot from cars. The wild animals seem to consider cars as some kind of fellow creature with strange habits and a peculiar scent, but harmless. So, as long as passengers do not talk too much or move, they do not frighten the animals. But when they get out, the animals panic and race away. The dry season had come, and the animals were now dependent on waterholes and rivers that did not dry up. This was the time of year when poachers' activities were at their height, since they knew exactly where the animals must pass to drink when they were thirsty. The wardens looked very hard to control their activities, and it was horrifying to see the number of traps, poisoned arrows, and spears which they collected. All over East Africa, poaching, drought, floods, and the destruction of wild animals to make place for people and their crops threatened the survival of wildlife. The idea that they may one day become extinct terrifies and shocks me. The longer I live among animals, the more I want to help them, and the more I believe that in helping them, we also help ourselves. So once she woke up in her tent and she heard the lapping noise, and being off her sleep, she listened it for some time carefully, and then she realized that a lioness was inside her tent and was drinking water from her basin. There was only a table between her and the lion, so she shouted at her and urged the lion to go. The lions that lives close to Seronera were very comfortable with the visitors of humanhood because they had seen them from their childhood. So they think that the cars and the humans are also natural features of their lives, except in those areas where people used to hunt from the cars. And as long as people does not talk and move, animals do not do anything. They were familiar with the human beings. But the moment they started to get out of the car, or they move, or they talk much, they get frightened and they ran away. Now the dry season had started, and animals are very much dependent on small pools to go and collect water from there. So this is the season where this is the time where the poachers means those who illegally capture or kill animals, they start their activities. And the wardens, they had to work very hard to keep away the animals from the attack of the poachers, and it was a very horrifying scene to see so many traps, poisoned arrows, and spears which they used to collect. All over East Africa, poaching, drought, floods, and the destruction of wild animals to make place for people and their crops threaten the survival of wildlife. So all over East Africa, this wildlife is threatened because of poaching, then drought and floods, and people used to destroy the trees and all. So animals were very much frightened of all these things. The idea that they may one day become extinct terrifies and shocks me. The longer I live among animals, the more I want to help them, and the more I believe that in helping them, we also help ourselves. So Joy Adamson, she was frightened by the thought that Animals will one day become extinct, and so the more she lives around them, she wants to help them. She thinks that helping them is also helping humankind. So that is the chapter in Serengeti. I hope you are clear with it. If you have any doubt, you can clarify it in the evening session. Thank you and have a wonderful day.